Welcome to Soul Therapy with Shell. I am Shell Griffin and I practice as a soul doula. I combine therapeutic knowledge and lived experience with a healthy dose of spiritual exploration. Feel welcome to join me as we learn and grow together, exploring the magic and wonderment of experiencing life on earth as a spiritual being. Welcome back, lovely souls. And today I have a really gorgeous guest, the beautiful Toni Corbett. This is her first podcast and as a guest, and she was a little bit nervous, and I've totally broken those nerves for you now, Toni, by stuffing up myself. Welcome.
Thank you. Michelle, it's so lovely to be here. It's such a privilege given what you do and the caliber of work that you do for so many people out there. It's such an invaluable service. So it's such a privilege to be here, Shell. So thank you for having me on.
You are so welcome. And Toni, my affairs organised. This is your soul work as well. We're both living our dream here, aren't we?
Oh.
You're here to guide people in preparing for what is the only certainty in life, that it will come to an end at some point. This particular lifetime. We won't go into that whole, reincarnation beliefs that I hold dear to my heart. But for this particular lifetime, you support families to prepare for that end of life. Do you want to share how you got there? Because it's not just overnight, this is what I'm doing. I'm really curious to hear your story on how you landed where you are today.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate that My Affairs Organised, the actual title, could send some people in a different direction. So I'll get to that. It's like a saucy world, but I tell you it's not so saucy. But just a bit of my background. I grew up on a farm in rural New South Wales. I didn't really want to be a farmer because the weather was our boss, and having no control of that, I ended up going away up to Sydney to study, and I spent 4 years and did a bachelor's where I ended up teaching high school, which I loved for a while, and then I found myself in staff rooms where there was some cynicism, and I was sort of a person that I really wanted to be in a positive environment and make a positive change. Mm-hmm. So as I launched my Year 12s out into the world, after a few years, I decided that I would launch myself. And I remember seeing, this will date me, but seeing Gwyneth Paltrow's movie on sliding doors where she made a bit of a change. And I thought, you know what, I'll do it. I will jump into hospitality. I'll do anything, but I do not want to shortchange my students. So I quit, much to the distress of my principal, not because I was fantastic, but in those days it was hard to get teachers, even harder now, and teaching is such a valuable career for so many people and for so many students who need amazing teachers, and there's so many amazing teachers about. So I left. I was very fortunate that I got a job in IBM. I knew nothing about tech at all, nothing about software. When someone said to tell me to take notes in a meeting, I literally took notes where there was software that you would use to send out notes. I had handwritten notes to put them in envelopes to send them out. So I was so wet behind the ears. But I was sort of like, I think when you're brought up on a farm, you sort of knuckle down and do the work. So I did. I ended up staying with IBM for 5 or 6 years, and then moved into banking, still in projects. And I tarted around in banking for a little bit. Let me rephrase that. That might be taken the wrong way. I moved around from different banks, and then I found myself studying kinesiology. So I knew nothing about kinesiology.
That's a big shift.
It's such a big shift. But I was doing banking in the day and kinesiology at night. I had never heard, and this is not unusual for my character, for who I am, I never knew anything about kinesiology. I read an article in a newspaper. There was an amazing lady called Geraldine Gallagher from Sydney northern suburbs teaching it. So I thought, well, I'll do that in my lunch hours. I'd get into work early. I'd shuffle my desk. I'd zip over to her place, learn about bark essences and muscle tapping and testing, etc. And then I realized, well, maybe I think I need to get back to traveling because I love travel. And I didn't feel I was a square peg in a round hole in corporate. So I thought, well,
Mhm.
change jobs, change companies, move to Brisbane because I wanted to launch off to go traveling for a year around the world, well, in South America, which I did. And all my corporate gigs and consultancy frames or contracts were always spotted with bookended with travel or study because corporate was never enough. And I think as a female in corporate, there's a point in time, hopefully there's a quickening now for all the girls and women out there that they either can get a voice around the table a lot stronger than what we certainly had it, because I know you're in that space as well, Shell, or
Yeah.
they're choosing something else that serves them and what they really want in life, because it can be such a treadmill in there. You can get paid well, and it's a fight against yourself to sort of look out and see what else can I do. But there's so many more things that you can do. So from there, I went traveling, came back. Sydney didn't fit as a dress anymore, so I moved to Melbourne. I did some corporate gigs there, all the while sort of still pursuing, I guess, some spirituality or some personal development. I studied with Tony Robbins and John D. Martini, did some leadership with them for quite a few
Mhm.
years. Wayne Dyer and the likes of Deepak Chopra and Louise Hayes and Doreen Virtue, that was where my heart was. So I was studying that, being, ruthless in the day and like looking for forgiveness of the night time by looking for more of a spiritual, I guess, pathway as well. So who am I? Always asking the questions, where do I fit? Family Matters had me move north to the Northern Rivers area.
Mhm.
And so I commuted madly back and forth to Melbourne while still living up this way for a couple of months, and then chucked it in and moved up here permanently, all the while still sort of pursuing an entrepreneurial study or travel thing on the
Mm.
side. And one time I'd gone down to Melbourne for a Saturday business summit. Many of us entrepreneurs have been to various summits where, you're in the audience, and in the front of the stage, there's a speaker that gets on there for 40 minutes, and then they do a 15-minute sales pitch, and then the next, group will move in, or individuals will move in. It was so exciting because it was like getting into the online world. And I was in one conference by myself. I didn't know anyone. And I was sitting in an aisle area, and there was another aisle, and there was this man sitting there. Most people were in suits or dressed quite smartly. And he had taken his socks off, his shoes off. And there he was, picking at his feet with wild abandon and almost chewing on his toenails. I looked across at the lady who was sitting behind him, and we were like, what in the world is going on? And we giggled. And in the break for morning tea, we caught up, and her name was Murray. And we just laughed, and we just hit it off. When you're fortunate to meet someone, and I know people say it can be an age thing where you only you meet them when you're younger, or like, when you've got a family and children, etc. It's hard to meet those people. But I think if you're out in the world, there's a greater chance, right? So I met her. She had a couple of children by that stage, and we were just business buddies. We're on this future trajectory. She had her business, and I was starting out my business, and we just became really great buddies, really great friends. And she lived in Melbourne. I was living up the Northern Rivers. And each fortnight we would catch up by phone. I'd ring her one month. She'd ring me the end of that month. And we caught up, and we did this for years. And we just, honestly, would say a joke at the first 15 minutes, and that would have us laughing for the rest of the 15 minutes, even if nothing was said. It was just so much fun. And we just shared all our ideas and plans and supported each other with what each other was doing. And I was running late to my call one time, so I missed that week. And I knew she'd been having some doctor's tests. She didn't really say that too much because she didn't want to talk too much about it, but I was obviously always keen to support her. She was just such a lovely friend. And I missed her this week, and this had been after a couple of years of knowing her. We caught up a couple of times in Melbourne, and her husband rang me to say that she'd passed away. I was
Oh, sorry.
totally shattered. I said to him, sorry, I don't understand. Can you put Marie back on the phone? I need to talk about that. And he was trying to explain to me, while trying to navigate this terrible bereavement himself, that she had passed, that she hadn't wanted her, people to give her sympathy when she wanted to live as lively and as strongly as she could in life. And she just didn't want the pity, because pity can be a real noose, I guess. She found it to be as such. But it was quite aggressive. She had cancer, and it took her within a month. It was insanely aggressive. And I didn't know what to do. I was sort of spinning my wheels for months after that. And I thought to myself, by that stage, I'd had two children myself. And I was like, she didn't get to, it cuts me up still today, she didn't get to tell her girls what she thought or what plans, when they're from relationships to finance management to health to, happiness and wealth and all those things. She never got to have those conversations. So I'm a plan A, plan B girl. So I thought, right, I'm writing letters out to my children, and I did that with great gusto. And then I talked to it about my friends, like, do not assume that you get tomorrow. And I was with great fervor explaining how quickly people can just disappear. We hear about the celebrities. They make the front pages of the magazines, online or otherwise, and the newspapers, Robert Redford, Diane Keaton, but we don't hear about everyday people who pass every minute of the day. And in life, 0.9% of us recurring don't know when the last day is or the last hour or minute. So I thought, right, I got busy. I wrote letters to my daughters, to my family. I then got all my finances organized in some sheets, and I followed Scott Pape, who runs the Barefoot Investor. He had a chapter in his book about getting your last folder together, although I don't energize the idea of last folders or emergency folders. I called mine the just in case folder. And I put together my letters, my finances, and then I thought, well, what else? Insurances. So it's really a list of everything that anybody would need to know if I fell off my perch tomorrow or so. So it's called a second grieving. So when people have a challenges with a first grieving, when someone passes away, like, that's enough. But yesterday I was talking to a friend. I just started art school this year, Art World, and she was saying her father and mother passed away within a month, and they were both, one was not so healthy, but the other one was super healthy. And just like that, they passed away. And she said that was a couple of years ago. She's still trying to get certain authorities and government departments on board with certain things. And also, like, for wills and estates where nothing has been written down, that is such a sad and tough rabbit hole to go down. So I put all the information I had into a course. I built a website called My Affairs Organized, so it's not as saucy as what it sounds. And I built a course. We are both, I was going to say Tina Turner. She's like a Tina Turner. She's such a force.
Tina Turner of the entrepreneurial world.
Exactly. Of her Empire Builder. That's where we've delightfully met. And I started her course because I wanted to put my knowledge and my thoughts and all of that into one space. And plus, part of my DNA is to be organized. I've always followed Marie Kondo. I was a declutterer there on the side for a while. We've tried lots of different things, which I think is a great idea to encourage anyone to try different things. So that's where the just in case course happened. And also, because I live in the Northern Rivers and we've had some terrible floods down here, it lends itself to natural disasters. So if you're in a flood-prone area in the wheat belt or a fire-prone area coming from a farm, we were always concerned about smoke in the air because that meant our crops would go up like that. If you're in, like now, we can say if we're in cyclone territory, because we had a cyclone on the East Coast this year, having a just-in-case folder in a fire and waterproof safe is so freeing, because you can take that, and although, if you've got a family or you're just yourself, it just helps you start life again wherever you are. If your house has been decimated or not, if it's been flooded, you've got your key paperwork and documentation to start things. And there's so much bureaucracy in government departments, bless them, in many ways we need them. And it can be so hard when you don't have your identification or your insurance policies or your financial information and all the hoops you've got to jump through. Because if you need to say that I am who I am and I have this bank account, but you, on the other hand, you don't have your passport or your 3 different types of identification, it's catch-22 and you can go nowhere with that. So I thought by doing this just in case course, it's not always for someone who's going to perhaps fall off their perch, although we know we're going to now, maybe in 100 years. But it's also for a situation where you might also be a person who needs to get out of a situation quickly. Your home might not be as tenable as what it once was, and you might need to get out. So even just having a just in case folder, it helps you start a life somewhere else, somewhere safe. That's it. That's
even for like fleeing a domestic violence situation, it springs to mind just having a truth folder so that you can have your truth recorded as a backup to support you. Like even a diary, I think, would be incredibly valuable for, no one wants to go through court cases or have police involved in a fleeing situation, but to have something like that to support you when you're in that state of shock that you're experiencing this, that maybe you've suddenly been displaced from your home, worse, your children, your family, that isolation that can occur, but having that evidence that can speak for you when you can't find the words would be really handy as well. That was just a little offshoot for you to throw in there if you haven't already got something like that covered. Yeah. And that brings part 1 to a close from our conversation with the wonderful Toni Corbett. I hope you join us next week for part 2 of our conversation, where we'll dive a little deeper. Take care. Thank you for showing up for yourself by listening to Soul Therapy with Shell. Feel welcome to subscribe to my podcast, share the pod with your friends, family, colleagues and neighbours, and please, if you are willing, I would absolutely love a 5-star review to give my little pod a boost in the algorithms. For further detail on how to work with me, please visit my website www.shellgriffin.com or find me on the socials. I hope you'll join me on my next episode. Till then, go gently and intentionally. With care, Shell.